Corinne stood at the stove frying eggs. She was thinking, however, of Marianne. 6 days. That was all it had taken to get him to accept the role of being her little niece and learn how to properly act like a nice little girl. A real smile of affection appeared on her face when she thought how pretty he looked, and she began to see why her sister had been wanting to dress him up. He made such a nice girl. Jane Beverly would be at the party today, but she would be the only lady there that knew he was really a boy. Auntie I didn't plan to tell the other ladies, though she wouldn't deny it either if they had heard about Marianne before they got there. In either case it would be a wonderful afternoon. She wanted to make sure she got a picture of Marianne playing with the other girls. Then she'd send her sister that picture and also the one of Marianne hugging his doll at Mrs. Cabot's. She could imagine the effect it would have on Marie. When Marianne came into the kitchen, Corinne called her over and gave her a big hug and kissed her cheek. Marianne smiled up at her, a little surprised at the affection her auntie I was showing her. "Marianne, you'll be the prettiest girl at the party this afternoon," said Corinne proudly. "But, auntie I, there'll be real girls there. How can I be prettier than they are?" He sat down at the table. "Sweetheart," replied auntie I, "you just don't seem to realize how very pretty you look. And with that special dress on we bought for today, you'll look like an angel." She placed a plate of bacon, eggs and toast in front of Marianne. "Auntie I, was I a regular boy before I came here?" he asked. "Of course you were, darling," answered Corinne. "Why do you ask?" "Well, I know I had kind of a girlish face compared to the other boys, and Mommy kept my hair long, too. And now I like looking and acting like a girl. That doesn't seem like something a regular boy would like to do. But I can't help it. It seems nice to me now." Corinne reached across the table and held one of Marianne's hands. "Honey, don't be so concerned about that. I told you that you'd like it after a while. It's just the way you are, Marianne. And you're not the first boy that's found out they like living like a girl. There's never been anything wrong with you, dear. But I like you so much better now that you've learned to be a nice girl. Do you really think girls are better than boys, auntie I?" "Oh, yes, dear," answered Corinne. "Don't you think it's better to look pretty and to act so nice?" "Yes. I guess I do, now, auntie I," said Marianne, a little thoughtful about the way things had turned out. "But do you think I'll always feel this way?" "I don't know, honey," replied auntie I. "You're still very young, and when you get older your thinking might change. But for now, I think you should just enjoy being a girl." "I do, auntie I," said Marianne. "It's something I never thought I would do. But I do enjoy it." They finished eating breakfast and Marianne went upstairs to take a bubble bath. As soon as she left the bathroom, Corinne began working on her hair, arranging the cute bangs and tying the pretty ponytail with a pink ribbon. Later, after Marianne was dressed, she'd put just a hint of mascara and lipstick on her, as well as a slight bit of color on her cheeks. The dress that Jane Beverly had helped them pick out was a pink sleeveless dress with shoulder straps and a square neckline. It was actually a little plain looking except that it had a chiffon overskirt that whispered delightfully against the taffeta underskirt. A nice big bow was tied at the back of his waist. Auntie I had also bought a new bouffant slip to go with it. The satin shoulder straps were adjustable, and Corinne lengthened them just enough so that the pretty scalloped lace hem of it showed a little below the hem of the dress. The lace-trimmed anklets were white, but her Mary Jane shoes were a soft pink. When Corinne finally backed away and took a good look at her, she started smiling immediately. "Oh, sweetheart," said auntie I. "You really do look like an angel." But she wasn't finished yet. She painted Marianne's nails pink also and placed a dainty pearl bracelet on her left wrist. 2 small gold-plated barrettes, one on each side of her head, were added to keep her hair neat-looking. When Marianne finally had a chance to see herself in the full-length mirror, she began smiling also. But then she began shaking her head. "Auntie I just don't understand how a boy can look so pretty. Well, for one thing, you're not a boy any longer, dear, corrected Corinne. You're a pretty young lady. And part of the reason is that you want to look pretty now. Oh, yes. I do, replied Marianne. I love looking pretty now. See, honey, said Corinne. Didn't I tell you that you'd like being a girl more and more as time went by? Auntie I knows what's best for you, sweetheart. I only wish your mother was here to see you. But we'll take a picture of you with the other girls today and send it to her along with the picture of you and your doll. It'll make her so happy when she sees what a pretty girl you've become. Auntie I's eyes were shining bright with a sense of her own personal achievement in making Marianne such a nice girl. She had never doubted for a moment that she could do it. For today, Corinne had abandoned her usual tailored look and was wearing a two-piece outfit consisting of a white silk top with black polka dots and a black taffeta skirt with red petticoats beneath it. Nonetheless, it still looked like an expensive outfit. She had carefully coordinated her shoes and accessories, and even Marianne was impressed with the way she looked. Catherine Pendergast had an enormous estate. Not only was the house huge, but extensive well-manicured grounds gave it a park-like setting. Marianne's eyes were popping when Corinne pulled the car into the long driveway. My goodness! What a big house, Aunt Corinne. Yes, joked Corinne. Goes to show you what God could do if he had the money. The joke went over Marianne's head, but Corinne was in a very good mood this afternoon. She parked the Continental near the front door. Several other cars were already there. When they got out of the car, Corinne gave Marianne a quick inspection, primping her hair though it really didn't need it. Marianne, Susan Pendergast is a very nice lady. She started having these bridge parties after her husband died, probably because she was lonely. So don't be afraid to speak up when you meet her. She'll be delighted to see another little girl at her home. All right, Aunt Corinne, answered Marianne, still a little pop-eyed at the size of the mansion. Instead of a butler or maid, Mrs. Pendergast herself answered the door. Marianne looked up and saw a lady with completely white hair tied in a soft bun in back. But despite the white hair, she was very, very pretty. She gave Corinne a big hello and bent forward as she looked at Marianne, still with a big smile. I suppose I should have asked you ahead of time, said Corinne, but I didn't think you'd mind if I brought along my niece for the afternoon. She's staying with me for the month while her mother is away on a business trip. Oh, don't be silly, said Mrs. Pendergast. She's more than welcome. And what's her name? I'm Marianne Beliveau, Mrs. Pendergast, said Marianne, speaking right up like Aunt Corinne had told her to. Mrs. Pendergast took her hand. Well, let's go inside and you can meet everyone. I'll show you around, Marianne. My. You certainly are a pretty girl. Inside the huge mansion, Susan led the way down a hallway towards the rear of the house and then into a large room that was set up for card playing. There were several silver platters on a buffet holding hors d'oeuvre and tiny sandwiches. Then Marianne spotted several girls her own age in a connecting room. It looked like an arboretum, and the large windows looked out on a garden. But first Marianne had to be introduced to the other ladies in the first room. Mrs. Beverly was there and smiled brightly at Marianne wearing her new dress. All the ladies were very nice, and none of them seemed to realize she was a boy. Susan Pendergast took her into the adjoining room where the other girls were. Girls, this is Marianne. Why don't the rest of you introduce yourselves to her? I'm sure you'll find she'll fit right in with your fun today. Then Susan let go of Marianne's hand and, smiling at her, turned and left her with the other girls. Like herself, all the other girls were wearing their prettiest dresses. A girl her own age approached Marianne and said, "Hello, my name is Gloria Compton. That's a really pretty dress you're wearing. My name is Marianne Beliveau. My auntie I bought this dress for me yesterday." "Well, let me introduce you to the other girls," said Gloria. It's been a while since we had anybody new join us. But we have a lot of fun here, especially when we go outside. Marianne was quickly introduced to the other girls. One of them asked her what was in the large bag she was carrying. She opened it and took out the doll dressed like a Southern belle, and all the other girls started in with "os" and "arse." The doll got passed around and definitely met with approval. But after a while Marianne propped it up against the backrest of the couch and they began to talk about other things. "You said you had a lot of fun outside," said Marianne. "Doing what?" "Well," said a girl named Betsy, "we usually start off slowly with a walk through the gardens, but sooner or later we play hide and seek. But we have to wait till the ladies are busy playing cards. And sometimes we explore the grounds, too. It's very pretty around Mrs. Pendergast's home. She even has statues in her gardens. In about an hour, the ladies will take a break in their card game and have refreshments. Once they start playing cards again we can slip outside." Marianne thought about hide and seek and Aunt Corinne's warning about running. But for today she decided that she would do whatever the other girls did. In the meantime, they talked a lot about movies they had seen, places they had gone last summer or during the winter, school, and had a giggle-filled conversation about boys. Most of the girls thought boys were funny, and none of them actually had a boyfriend at their tender age. Their parents wouldn't allow such a thing. But they enjoyed talking about them anyway. An hour later, when everyone took a break, Aunt Corinne and Mrs. Pendergast walked over to the doorway where the girls were also having refreshments. Mrs. Pendergast was looking steadily at Marianne and talking in a low voice to Aunt Corinne. "Let me sound her out on the idea," said Aunt Corinne. "In any case she'll certainly do what I tell her to. But this would be something new for her that I think she'd be excited about doing." "She's such a pretty child," said Mrs. Pendergast. "She'd be perfect for it." Then the two women turned back into their own room and began talking with the other women. Marianne wondered what they had been talking about. It seemed to be about her, but beyond that it was a mystery. Once the card game was going again, the girls slowly moved towards the French doors that led out to the garden. Pretty soon they began to slip outside without drawing attention to themselves. They made a sharp turn around the house to get out of sight, and then began to walk slowly through the flower gardens. Marianne was very impressed with the gardens. She wondered if Mrs. Pendergast took care of them herself or had a gardener do it. But then they went around another corner and she could see even more flower beds stretching alongside the house and beyond it. A little ways off there was a topiary, and at the rear of the house was a hedge maze with a fountain spraying up in the middle of it. Marianne had never seen anything like it before, but the other girls were used to it. "There's lots of places to hide around here," said Jennifer, a cute and friendly girl that Marianne had been talking to. Pretty soon, a game of hide and seek was organized and everyone disappeared except for one girl that stood with her eyes shut next to a large oak tree. Marianne thought again about Aunt Corinne's warning against running, but decided that she'd probably want her to do whatever the other girls did, and ran and hid behind a tall shrub. She was very careful not to catch the chiffon overskirt on any branches. This was also new to her, but she enjoyed playing with the other girls very much. And they had all been so nice to her. She hoped she would be coming here again. The game continued on for a half hour or so, with some girls running up to the tree when it was safe and others being chased by the girl that was it so she could tag them. There was a lot of laughing and giggling, and Marianne really felt happy. Then 5 of the ladies walked around the corner of the building and stood there watching them. Most of the girls didn't even notice them. "All right, girls," said Betsy's mother. "Time to start acting like young ladies again." There was a general groan from the girls, but they obediently stopped the game and followed the ladies back inside the mansion. As Marianne looked at the group of ladies, she saw Aunt Corinne among them, and she wasn't smiling either. "Now I'm in for it," thought Marianne. But Aunt Corinne didn't say a word to her. Still, Marianne expected a scolding on the way home. Before the ladies continued playing cards, they had all the girls get together for a photograph. Jennifer sat next to Marianne and put her arm around her shoulders. They all smiled and the camera flashed. I hope Mommy likes it, thought Marianne. At 5 o'clock the ladies were done with card playing and had pretty much covered the current gossip as well. They began to collect their daughters and leave for home. Marianne noticed Mrs. Pendergast talking to Aunt Corinne while she looked at Marianne. She really would be perfect, Corinne, she said. I hope she'll like the idea. I'll see to it that she will, said Aunt Corinne. And I'll give you a call and tell you as soon as I've talked to her. Then she put on her hat and gloves and called Marianne to come along. On the way home Marianne kept waiting for Aunt Corinne to say something about running. Corinne didn't disappoint her, but surprised her in what she said. So, running around like a tomboy, said Corinne. But Aunt Corinne, all the girls did. We were playing hide and seek. Corinne looked over at her and smiled. Well, even girls have to get some exercise, I suppose, Marianne. And I wouldn't have wanted you to look out of place. But thank God you didn't fall down and get grass stains on your dress. You mean you're not mad, Aunt Corinne? Asked Marianne. No, dear. I'm not mad at you. You fit right in with all the other girls this afternoon. Did you have fun? Oh, yes. They were all so friendly to me. Do you think they knew I'm really a boy, Aunt Corinne? Stop saying that, Marianne. You're not a boy now. And the answer is a no, none of them realized that there was anything different about you. Except for the running, you were a nice little lady today. And Mrs. Pendergast thought you were the prettiest girl there. Marianne felt a big relief when Aunt Corinne said that. She relaxed back in her seat. Then she started thinking about the way Mrs. Pendergast kept looking at her when she spoke to Aunt Corinne. But she didn't want to ask Aunt Corinne what she had been saying about her. She thought she'd probably be told when Aunt Corinne wanted her to know. When they got home, Auntie I had her take off a pretty dress and put on another one, the pink one with the Rick RAC on it. The special dress was carefully hung up and then they went back downstairs. Marianne, you can't be hungry now, are you? It seemed like every time I looked over at you and the other girls you were eating or drinking something. No, Auntie I, replied Marianne. I'm not hungry at all. Neither am I, said Corinne. Maybe later on we'll have a little snack. Come sit down next to me. As soon as Marianne sat down, Corinne placed her arm around her shoulders and gave her a kiss on the cheek. You had a nice time today, didn't you, dear? Yes, I did, Auntie I. It was so nice playing with the other girls. I told you that you would, Marianne. Auntie I knows what's best for you, honey. She smiled down at her niece. And in 2 weeks you're going to do Mrs. Pendergast and me a big favor. And it's something you'll really enjoy doing. What is it, Auntie I? I'll tell you in a few days, but for now, I want you to realize that having nice friends means that sometimes you have to do favors for them. In this case, it's something you'll like doing. Why don't you want to tell me now, Auntie I? Corinne tightened her arm around Marianne's shoulders and smiled down at her. Oh, maybe I just want to tease my pretty niece a little bit. She gave Marianne another kiss on the cheek. Tomorrow we'll get the film developed and send your mommy the 2 pictures. She'll be thrilled when she sees them. Mommy had promised to call Marianne once or twice a week. So far she hadn't called at all. Auntie I said it was because she was so busy, but perhaps they'd hear from her tonight. What are you going to say to Mommy when she calls, Marianne? I'm not sure, Auntie I. I'll probably tell her that I'm trying to do what she wants me to do, and maybe tell her about today's card party and having fun with the other girls. That will make her very happy, Marianne, said Auntie I. And it'll probably make her anxious to get back home so she can see you, too, dear. Auntie, do you think Mommy will want me to continue being a girl when she gets back home? Yes, I do, Marianne, answered Corinne. Why? Does that idea upset you? I don't know, Auntie. I really am happy being a girl, but sometimes I think about boy things I'd still like to do. Well, you and Mommy can talk about it when she gets back, dear. But I know she'll be very happy when she sees what a nice girl you've become. She kissed Marianne's cheek again. The affection Auntie was showing her lately had completely changed Marianne's opinion of her aunt. She really did seem to know what would make her feel happy being a girl. And she was still learning girl things from her, too. Marianne no longer felt funny or strange dressed as a girl. In fact, she enjoyed looking as pretty as she could. She had grown to love wearing pretty clothes and acting like a girl. And it made Auntie very happy, too. But she wondered what the big favor was she'd be doing for Mrs. Pendergast. A dangerous afternoon. And the special favor. A couple of days after the bridge party, Auntie told Marianne that they had to go visit someone on business. But she warned her to always stay close to her while they were there. Why, Auntie? She asked. Do they have a bad dog there or something? Let's just say something for now. We're going to be seeing a man that has been advising me on how I should invest my money. He's kind of an ugly man, Marianne, but he's very smart. But you stay close to me. We'll take care of business and get out of there as quick as we can. Actually, Marianne had come to feel very safe when she was with Auntie. She seemed able to handle any situation. Around 2 o'clock that afternoon, Auntie pulled her Continental up to the curb in front of an old brownstone house in the city. After you say hello, Marianne, just sit next to me and things will be all right. Try not to stare at Mr. Old. He's not very nice to look at anyway, and besides, it wouldn't be polite. Yes, Auntie, she replied. He sure has a funny last name. It's a very old name, Marianne, explained Aunt Corinne. They went up the stairs to the entrance of the brownstone and Corinne used the heavy door knocker. Soon the door was opened by a man that looked unlike any man Marianne had ever seen. Ah. Come in. Come in, he said. He led the way to a very richly decorated room he used as his office. Good to see you, Corinne, he said. And who's the pretty little girl you have with you? My niece, she replied. She's staying with me till her mother gets back from a business trip. Her name is Marianne. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Old, said Marianne. Sit down and get comfortable, and we can get started, he said. Corinne and Marianne sat down on a couch while Mr. Old sat down behind his desk. Marianne couldn't help but look at Mr. Old's face now and then. He was a big bear of a man wearing a dark suit with a gold chain draped across his vest. His hair was snow white, and his face was all blotchy red. But it was his nose that fascinated her. It was huge and looked like it was swollen at the end. A dark blue vein ran down one side of it. And his eyes looked watery and seemed small because of how fat his cheeks were. Corinne and Harry Old began to talk about her investments. They kept it up for quite a while. Occasionally Mr. Old would argue against some of her ideas, explaining that some of the companies probably wouldn't be continuing a growth period much longer. But it wasn't something Marianne was interested in or understood, so she occupied herself by looking at the old decorations and knickknacks in the room. At one point, Marianne whispered to Aunt Corinne that she had to go to the bathroom. Corinne told her that it was upstairs and to come right back. At the same time, Mr. Old picked up the phone and dialed a number. Yes, Aunt Corinne, she said, and started up the carpeted staircase. Here, said Harry Old, handing the phone to Corinne. It's Tom Crawford on the other end. Explain what you want to do, and see if he agrees with my advice. Corinne took the phone and began talking while Mr. Old sat at his desk. But after a little while he got up and started up the stairs. Marianne was just leaving the bathroom when she saw Mr. Old reaching the top of the stairs. He came towards her with an attempt at a smile that only made him look worse because of his cigar-stained teeth. "My, you are a very pretty girl, dear," he said to her as he got closer. "I have something interesting in a room up here. Would you like to see it?" "Well, Aunt Corinne told me to come right back. But if it won't take too long, I guess it's okay," she replied. Harry took her hand and they began to walk down the hallway to a door at the end. His hand had just inserted a key in the lock when there was a big crash. Marianne saw Aunt Corinne standing there with the handle of a large water pitcher in her hand. The rest of it had been smashed to pieces when she hit Mr. Old over the head with it. Needless to say, he had collapsed on the floor like a sack of potatoes. Marianne was speechless. She watched as Corinne knelt beside Mr. Old and felt the side of his neck. "He'll be all right in a while," she said. Corinne took the key from Mr. Old's fingers and unlocked the door. "You wait here, Marianne. I'll only be a minute." Soon she came back out of the room with a folded-up photograph. "Come along, Marianne. Let's get out of here and go home. I was afraid something like this would happen. But I can always find another investment advisor." "But, Aunt Corinne, why did you hit him?" "I'll explain it to you in the car, dear. Just be thankful I came upstairs in time." "In time for what?" she asked. "In the car, Marianne," said Corinne. "We'll talk about it there. He'll be all right in a little while. I doubt it's the first time he's been hit over the head."